Bueno, la siguiente intervención también tiene que ver con el tema de la identidad y del patrimonio, en un contexto diferente. En este caso, el profesor Taisto Mäkëla va a hablar de la particular identidad de Finlandia y la relación que ésta tiene con la madera. Taisto es profesor en la Universidad de Colorado, en Denver.
I'm going to apologize first to the translators. I also have to apologize to the cameraman. I can't sit at a podium. I'm sorry. It's not working?
It's not working.
You can hear me, right?
Now it's working.
Oh, okay. So I apologize in the beginning. English is my second language, but I'll try at times to speak as intentionally slowly and articulately as possible. Can I have my first slide? Yeah, it's the top one. Yeah, the PDF. There we go. Okay. How do I control the slides then if I'm walking? Can somebody do that for me? Yeah, okay, and then I'm passing these around. It's smell-o-vision, okay? It's tar, a handmade nail, and a handmade trimmed wood shingle. So please carefully smell it. If you hold the tar in your hand a bit, it'll warm up and you can smell it a bit better. It's a real pleasure to be here. I want to especially thank Alejandro for all his organization. He's a very bright, young, hardworking man, so it's really great. Can I have the first image? Nowadays, I prefer Cambridge, but that's another issue. I always start a lecture by honoring one of my teachers. And in this case, it's Dr. Hugh Plummer, who passed away a number of years ago, but who introduced me to Greek and Roman architecture, and this is in Neville Court, Trinity College, Cambridge. A long time ago, yes, that's me on the right as a young man. So next. Interestingly, we had this discussion about the classical. I taught the classical architecture starting in 1990 in Denver in secret, and I liked doing it that way. And then when it started to become more popular, I moved away from it. So anyway, I was doing this, teaching my students for 25 years, ink washes, proportional systems, to honor my teacher, Dr. Plummer. So I learned through teaching, and I've moved on to other things now. And Christine's taken over very aptly. The battle goes on. Next. I'm not going to show you any buildings. I'm going to show you details. ¿Qué es una arquitectura relevante y apropiada para cualquier momento y lugar? Right? What is a relevant and appropriate architecture for any given time and place? That's the question we need to ask. Right? Isn't that the general, broad, obvious question we need to ask? Next image. This is a church. There's a list of the buildings. It's all unfinished, so I don't want you to try and figure out how to write them or spell them. So there's some lists being passed around of the buildings' names. Okay. And I can give that to you later also. The main topic I've been interested in for many years is architecture and cultural identity. Constructing cultural identity, however, is an iterative, fragile project. That was the outside, and this is the inside of Sodankylä Old Church, 1689, in Lapland, far north of Finland. Anyone been to Finland? One person. Okay, well, there we go. Two people. Okay, there are Small country, 5.4 million people. It's like a little part of Madrid or something, right? The whole country. It's very important also because it's still survives. It's wood. Wood tends to burn a lot. And my talk is really about wood, light, and space. And I want to talk about, if tectonics is the underlying logic, how's it translated to me? If tectonics is the underlying logic of the combination of structure and material, then the detail is the elaboration of that logic. The detail that celebrates or articulates that logic yet remains subordinate to the overall tectonic conception. Light. In the extreme environment of Finland, in the winter there's barely any, in the summer the sun doesn't set. Plays an essential and distinct role in the articulation of structure and material and the sensory experience of architectural space. Ariti, that Greek word, functional excellence, is a core principle for realizing utility in wood, beautiful utility in wood. This idea of functional excellence is from classical Greece. It's also in traditional vernacular architecture. It's also in the modern movement. And so I never talk about S-T-Y-L-E. It's sort of like a four-letter word to me. Architecture of substance throughout history is informed by principles, not styles. The styles are a lie. Next. Next. I'm sorry that there isn't a better, the projector. These are really nice images. Anyway, next. This is just outside of Helsinki. There's a collection of traditional buildings on Saurasaari Island. I highly recommend you going there. This is the Niemelä farm, which also even Aalto refers to as a paradigm of modularity based on the size of the logs, depending on where in Finland you get the logs. In the north, they're really small, the trees, and in the south, they're quite big. So it gives you a natural module. Next. Next. The details, this idea of wood, if you don't have nails, if you don't have access, you do everything by yourself with the materials you have at hand. And what's more beautiful than wood? What's more natural than wood? I've often asked, what's the lead score on a building like this? Right? Where it simply just rots back into the ground at a certain point. And you can see that things are made with what you have. You get some iron. The ironmonger makes the latch maybe, but a lot of times it's simply out of wood. Next. Next. These are just some of the buildings. A chair. Right? If you don't have anything, you can't go to a store. You should be able to, Joni Palasma's hero is his grandfather who made his own boots, made his own horseshoes for his horses, made his own pants and all these kinds of things, built his own farm, etc. Next. Very traditional. This is the Pertinotsa house of 1884. But if you see, the foundation is laid on the natural rock that you had, and you lay the first log on that to start to build the foundation, the floor. There's all kinds of other really beautiful details in this shot. Next. The patina of wood, how it ages. It's almost a Japanese wabi-sabi. You can see the light, you can see where the feet have gone. In Finland, you don't wear shoes inside, just like in Japan and other civilized countries. And the quality of the light, again, it's a precious material. So it's wood, light, and space. These are materials of design. And it's very important for how you experience those spaces. Next. I don't really have to say very much about these, right? Next. That's the main dining room table in this place. Next. This is a path through the forest. Finns like paths through forests. And this one goes to Oliver Alto's summer cabin, his summer house, but it goes to his sauna. Next. It has a sod roof. It's made of logs. And he does, anybody been to this? Oh, you need to go. Doesn't have a chimney. It is the most primeval, essential sauna. It's a smoke sauna. It's a huge pile of rocks under which you build a fire, and the smoke escapes through the eaves. And once the fire's done, then you throw water on the rocks and you go in. Next. It's said also, very similar like the 19th century traditional buildings. Next. Here's the door handle. It's not one you got from something he found on the land. Next. Here's the inside door handle. Next. And there's the inside of the smoke sauna itself. Charcoal. It's almost impossible to photograph. They've messed it up. They put in a regular sauna there now. But the hand and the patina, it's not dirty. Next. He ends up using this clever stuff as well. Wood is so flexible as something to make things out of. Next. Here's another path. This one to Jori Grottenfeldt sauna. Next. Next. There it is. Jori I just met him again earlier this month in Helsinki. Hadn't seen him for a long time. He quit architecture, got fed up with it. Didn't think it had integrity anymore. He made film. He just started designing his first building in, 20 years. And he was just complaining about all the regulations. Maybe he'll go back to making film again. Next. Next. Sod roof. It's a cannibalization of an older building. So next. There's dark logs inside, as you can see, almost like in a sabu sauna. Next. This is a new building. This is copper on the outside. That's one of my boys making trouble. Next. Wood, monomaterial again. It's the light. It's this continuum of identity that, I'll have a punchline in a bit. Next. Wood that you touch, it draws you to it. The warmth, the color, it doesn't conduct like, can you imagine a chair out of aluminum? They make them. Or steel or concrete. Next. Next. The idea of a traditional building that sits on that stone base is very common. It's being done today. This is 2005, a building in 2005. Those shingles are the same kind of shingles that were used in the 17th century. Hand split, they're poplar. Where's the shingle now, right now? Oh, it's over there. Yes. Have you smelled it? Okay. And that tar, that little piece of tar that's a preservative for the wood, hold it in your hand, it warms up a bit. And I'm not a phenomenologist, okay? But this is important. And that nail that you have, that's a handmade nail. All within the last 10 years. Next. Next. So this idea of, I often think of it as you take your grandmother, who might have been familiar with the church, great-grandmother, a church from the 19th century. You have the tar smell on it. Maybe the church now in 2005 doesn't look like the one, 150 years ago that she went to as a little girl. But the material is the same. The smell is the same. The quality of the light is similar. So that experience is one that creates this continuum of cultural identity. That it isn't a shock to go from one to the other, but that it is a gradual evolution of experience. Next. This is a newer church. Next. Next. Details. I'm sorry the slide, you can't see the slide more. This is incredibly precisely, beautifully crafted wood. Next. Even the organ keys in this particular church are made of pine. Next. Next. These are screen doors. Next. This is probably some would argue, the most important single building in Finland. I've had arguments with my friends about this. They usually concede. It's Petäjävesi Church from 1763 to 64, and they have the master craftsman's name. They know who did it. It was Jaakko Clementin Poika Leppänen. And next. If you start looking at these details, I just showed you a church from 2005. Look at the foundation, the way it's done. Next. Hand adds logs. Next. Here's the tar that you have. You can see how it drips off the edge and just beautiful casting of light on the wall. Reminds you of things, right? Next. Hand-shaped, those shingles. Here's an interior where it hasn't been weathered yet. Next. Monomaterial again. And think of in the winter, everything's going to be dark. No. You have white snow, and then you have a full moon. And sometimes it's even brighter than in the summer. Next. Next. Nails. We have a handmade nail. It takes a long time to make one. You don't just bang them around. You don't have a nail gun. Right? So next. You use them sparingly, and then you use the wood, the natural qualities of the wood itself, and craftsmen. We heard a lot about craftsmen yesterday. And I, in fact, met the carpenter mason who did the work for Mr. Gray. Next. This is from the last building, one of the last buildings I'll show you. These are the three kinds of materials. Next, there's more tar and shingles. Next. This is the interior. It's wrapped in a coat. There's an interior, again, using the very similar types of technique of timber, the corner timber framing. Next. Next. This is 2005. This is all done by a community. They decided to use 19th century techniques and tools to build a church in the 21st century. That's birch bark, separator between the stone and the log. It was all the ironwork was done by hand. They had to, in fact, make some of the tools because they didn't exist anymore. It was done by the community and architecture students, voluntary basis. Next, it's become an incredibly popular place now. This is the Kärsämäki shingle church. Next. 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 This was just freshly tarred the next time I went. Next. You can see how the tar just drops down and then it eventually sort of evaporates and gets thick. Next. There's one of the nails. Who's got the nail now? It's in your hand. Next. There's no electricity. There's no heat. It's lit simply by the top lantern window, and then they have candles and lanterns in the wintertime. Next. Birch bark is used for everything. Next. 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 This is the Chapel of Silence. It's just built, finished 2 years ago. It has much more sophisticated techniques with wood, but the light is the same. Yes, and it's a dark floor. There's a reason for that. Next. Next. And there's the corner detail there that's done in wood. Next. So here's back one of the old buildings in this window. And if you look carefully at that window, it's very sort of crinkly, odd glass. So next, here's my last slide. There's some Seurasaari again. So, I've told you a story, right? Let me question the story I've just told you. Ideological temptation. Let's not be naive. Let's not be overly optimistic about what's going on. Grand narratives impose order onto the world, including the story I just told you. Meaning, however, is constituted from the contingencies of individual experience, from multiples and differences, like everybody in this room. Yeah? I confess to being more and more attracted to the vast residue of unknown magnitude, as Arnold Toynbee calls it, that eludes classification and appropriation by grand narratives. Another thing I'd like to just pick at a bit. Moreover, assumptions regarding the correspondence between language and the world, that is, phenomena, persist. This confidence in the ability of language to describe the world, represent the world. The ineffable essence of the object, the building, whatever it may be, can't be overcome. There ultimately is no reconciliation between the discourse about the object and the object itself. The instability of reason and language. This is a long, big, long discussion. I'm just giving you some abstraction of it. However, is subject today, again, to a convenient collective mass amnesia, this instability. Oh, let's not worry about that. Let's just go on with our lives here. The text is reductive, however clever. The story is reductive, however clever. Almost done. This experience, it can't substitute for experience, yet the hope of reconciliation persistently quivers and quivers. Remembering Hölderlin, are we reduced to a vain, godless struggle to recover a unity of existence that has slipped away? To seek the authentic as a harmonious and organic unity, however, is to register its very absence. I could go on. That's enough? Okay, I'm just about to finish, okay? I apologize. No, let me finish. Some people want me to finish. Well, then I'm going to keep going then. So once this absence enters consciousness, the possibility of the authentic is denied. Its offer of affirmation perpetually deferred. The authentic, in any case, cannot be recreated. Do you understand what I'm saying here? It cannot be recreated, as it is, in every case, the authentic, a unique process of becoming and never being. That's enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much.